Hey everybody, welcome to our downtown studios. John Ramtine alongside Robin Black. The UFC was in Australia this past weekend. They made the announcement that the featherweight champion Conor McGregor will relinquish his title. I guess Jose Aldo, the interim champion right now, and I guess Max Holloway, Anthony Pettis fight. I'm just confused. So Conor McGregor.
Now Aldo will now be the real champion.
He becomes the champ. He's the undisputed champ. So Conor McGregor defeats Chad Mendes to become the interim champion.
Yeah.
He then knocks out Jose Aldo to become the undisputed champion. Yeah. He goes up to fight at 170 pounds. Because he didn't defend his title, Jose Aldo fought Frankie Edgar at UFC 200.
For the interim.
For the interim championship. Then Conor gets rid of his featherweight title. Jose Aldo,
they took it from him.
The undisputed champion. And in Toronto, we're going to see the crowning of an interim champion.
Who gives a rat's ass?
Whoa.
You know, really. Who really does? Aren't we here for the fights? Like, this is...
they care. Max
sure.
cares.
Max cares.
Pettis cares.
So let's take it from McGregor.
Yeah.
Does McGregor care?
I think
he
would
sure
care.
loved carrying those things around.
Only 2 weeks, though.
But these are all distractions. These are all like, trivialities.
People need it.
Well, do they? I mean, I know that listicles on the internet are important. And I know hierarchy means something to a lot of people. It's like, well, who's the best? If we're going to argue over what's an interim belt and what isn't and who lost, we're not getting to the point of who's the best. We're getting tangled in trivialities. McGregor lives by a motto of control what you can control and discard what you cannot control. And as much as he's like, bring out your lawyers, I'll get my army, whatever, when he looks at the thing, he's like, shit, well, they can take this from me. Make fun of it, say whatever you got to say publicly, and just move on. And if we're Conor McGregor fans, we should move on too. Ultimately, Pettis versus Holloway is a brilliant fight.
Amazing.
Aldo versus
whoever.
Is he fighting? Does he still fight?
I mean, he's supposed to be fighting. He was mad at them, and then
yeah. So he's mad. Look, we're so tangled in these trivialities in the world, and I know people will be like, no, but this is not fair. This guy's gonna. There's no fair. We wander through this unfair environment of life. Yeah. That's what we do. And you control what you can control, and you don't what you don't. And I'll tell you, the top people aren't sitting around going, oh my God, with their friends. They just move on. We do it. We, the fans, get tangled in it. We're outraged. When you type something onto Twitter saying how outraged you are taking inaction. I know I've been saying this for a couple of weeks, but it is not action to complain. Complaining tricks you into thinking that you're taking action while you take no action. Taking action is just accepting the bullshit that life sometimes gives you and making a plan for how you're going to move from this point on.
And word is Conor McGregor's going to take some time off, maybe getting back into the octagon sometime around May. If you're Conor, if you're the evolved athlete that you are, and the goal is to take new challenges, to prove yourself as a martial artist, and you look at the 45-pound roster, the 55-pound roster, and the 170-pound roster, put yourself in the mind of Conor McGregor. What is the most intriguing, challenging matchup for you?
Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Okay.
Yeah. But there are other things that motivate this guy. Yep. Now, again, same thing. Whether you're Khabib or his fans will be like, but McGregor's got to fight him. You can't make a guy. There's a contract with a company. Like, you can't force people to do these things. That's why. And Nurmagomedov has already said, well, screw it. I'll fight. Who's next? Tony. I'll fight Tony. That's what winners do. Yes, you can complain if you choose to, but it serves no actual purpose. It doesn't advance your... So all of this complaining that we all do as a culture is literally tricking ourselves into thinking we're doing something. Khabib can look there and go, you know what, it's not fair, this guy won't fight me for whatever his myriad of reasons are, so I will take some action that I can control, which is beating Tony. Tony, same thing. These guys can come together, make a ton of money. This guy may never fight again. He may look into his baby's eyes and go, oh my God, there's more to life than fighting. I don't want to do this anymore. You can't control any of these things. Sitting around yelling on the internet doesn't do anything. But myself, I want to see Conor McGregor fight Khabib. Khabib is a modern evolution of all the opposite things that Conor is. He controls space, and he hurts you at distance. He's calm, and he invites you in. Khabib takes away all space, and he's aggressive, and he pins you, and he pressures you, and he makes you immobile and tries to hurt you. That's the most intriguing fight. And McGregor is highly motivated by having challenges, like you said. Everybody knows it. The haters can deny it, but it is true if you know anything about him. However, he's also motivated by other things, and one of those is money and cars and suits and houses, and those things are achieved in other ways sometimes. So how this all plays out is beyond our control. Every minute we spend complaining about it is a minute wasted.
But if you're Conor and you believe that's the next challenge, it's a fight that people are talking about, is that what you're preparing for right now? Between now and May, when you decide to get back into the cage, are you bringing in people specifically to work on the skills and to try to replicate everything that Khabib brings into the cage?
I think when we try to imagine this as a human being instead of a guy who says amazing things and shocks people and makes millions of dollars and fights with Dana and knocks out Eddie Alvarez, when we think of him as a human being, if you've done nothing but work for the last 4 or 5 years of your life, no matter how driven you are, you're about to have a baby, your life is changing in many ways, you look at your bank account online and you're like, I got $35 million. It's hard to predict what those people will do. I have no idea. I would think because he's so driven to actualize his full potential as a martial artist that he's doing exactly that. But he's also, they don't go and admit, well, I'll be there. They figure out how to knock you out before you get to that position. So they'll start advancing the game like that as well. Another thing that we'll talk about probably today on 5 Rounds on our long form show. But you can't predict, you can't make this guy, like I said, he can break his leg next week. He can be in a car crash, or he can look into the eyes of his baby son or daughter and say there's more to life than fighting. You can't control any of those things. So you go, figure out where you are, and move on from your life. And how this all connects to an interim belt here and an actual belt there, and what was fair and why they took it and who took it, who gives a rat's ass?
When you talk about strategy with Conor and what the plan would be against Khabib, I remember I talked to Renzo Gracie about the new age of jiu-jitsu and some of the new techniques like berimbolo, and he's like, well, you have to learn those things in order, so we're not going to use them, but what we need to do is we need to learn these techniques and these principles to be able to shut them down. When you're John Kavanagh and you're Conor and you're trying to figure out, okay, can we solve this riddle of the eagle? What are the steps that we need to take to make sure that we can? Because if he does manage to close that space, we have to deal with that.
Yes, you must deal with that. Everybody who found out they were fighting Ronda in 10 weeks and went and worked on armbar defense and armbar escapes. And Holly Holm went and said, I'm fighting her in 2 years. I'm going to work on never letting her get a hold of me.
But you also worked on armbar defense.
Yes, of course you do. Of course you have to acknowledge all of that and find little hacks and find ways to get out of that scenario, ways to improve the situation that you're in. But if you are here with Ronda Rousey, you're screwed. So the game that Holly Holm played was do not get anywhere close to her having her hands. Oh, she's got her hands on me? Okay, let's get out of that. There are steps all the way back to I'm standing this far across the cage from him and he's nowhere near me. You got to work on all of it. You got to acknowledge all of it. That's how you grow as a martial artist. That's how you try to achieve perfection.
And I think that's one of the reasons why people, whether you love him or hate him, you've seen the growth of Conor McGregor since he's come into the UFC. And you would imagine that whether it's 45, 155 pounds, or 170 pounds, that he's going to find his way no matter what division he's competing in.
Yeah, I would think so. And that is why people admire. I mean, there are lots of reasons to admire or hate an athlete, and among those reasons is they make you realize that hard work can get you somewhere, and that tells you better get your ass off the couch and do something.
No matter what, Conor McGregor is going to go down as one of the greatest fighters to ever step foot inside of the cage.